text 24, Sridhar Swami notes that because of the specific nature of the upadhis, there is a specific, because of the difference in, because of the distinctions in the upadhis, there are distinctions in the results of worshipping particular forms of the gunavataras. This is explained by Sutta Goswami with an example. So the upadhis are that the Lord controls the mode of ignorance through Shiva. He controls the mode of passion through Brahma. And he assumes the form of Lord Vishnu to deal with the mode of goodness. So Sridhar Swami refers to this as upadhi. They are not upadhis or material conditioning the way they are for the conditioned souls who are under the control of Maya. It's simply the Lord's dealings with this world itself which is considered to be a form of upadhi here. That is just to contrast the nature of Bhagavan in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, the Lord has absolutely no connection with this world at all. So to contrast that, this expression is used. As explained above, one can get release from the conditioned life of material existence by devotional service to the personality of God. It is further comprehended herein that one has to rise to the platform of the mode of goodness, sattva, so that one can be eligible for the devotional service of the Lord. But if there are impediments on the progressive path, anyone, even from the platform of tamas, can gradually rise to the sattva platform by the expert direction of the spiritual master. Sincere candidates must therefore approach an expert spiritual master for such a progressive march, and the bona fide expert spiritual master is competent to direct a disciple from any stage of life, tamas, rajas, or sattva. It is a mistake, therefore, to consider that worship of any quality or any form of the Supreme Personality is equally beneficial. Except Vishnu, all forms are separated, being manifested under the conditions of material energy, and therefore these forms of material energy cannot help anyone rise to the platform of sattva, which alone can liberate a person from material bondage. The uncivilized state of life, or the life of the lower animals, is controlled by the mode of tamas. The civilized life of man, with a passion for various types of material benefits, is the stage of rajas. The rajas stage of life gives a slight clue to the realization of the absolute truth in the forms of fine sentiments in philosophy, art, and culture with moral and ethical principles. But the mode of sattva is a still higher stage of material quality, which alone helps one in realizing the absolute truth. So you have the sensual platform, you have the emotional platform, and you have the intellectual platform. Tamoguna, Rajoguna, Satoguna. And then you have the spiritual platform of direct experience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is aprakrita, fully transcendental. In other words, there's a qualitative difference between the different kinds of worshipping methods as well as the respective results derived from the predominating deities, namely Brahma, Vishnu, and Hara. Hara is Lord Shiva. Now here, I cannot help it. Sridhar Swami, no. Jiva Goswami has given a very fine commentary on this. Let me see. "24, isn't it? I'll only summarize. I will not be able to, I don't have time to read about this in full detail. So he says that between these three, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, there are statements that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are one. You will find such statements in Srimad Bhagavatam also. So some people raise a controversy. So Srila Jiva Goswami says, no, but even though the gradation between Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva is only in terms of the person in whom Lord Vishnu is present. Lord Vishnu is present in Brahma. Lord Vishnu is present in Shiva. Okay. And so Brahma happens to be the person in whom Vishnu resides. Shiva happens to be the person in whom Vishnu resides. But the one who is present in them, he is only one. He is the supreme person. So the statements of non-difference are correct. Just like, let's say a person sits in a motorbike, or let's say the same person sits in a car. And let's say another person sits in an airplane. Now these, or maybe the same person at different points in time sits in an airplane, or sits in a car, or sits in a bicycle, let's say, in a bicycle. So now you will say that their driving or their movement has to be graded in terms of speed. And you'll have to say the one who's riding the bicycle is slower, but it's the same person. The same person is riding a bicycle at a certain point in time, is riding a car at another point in time, is flying an airplane at another point in time. So based on what he is residing in, there is a gradation. So that is the logic here. But the person who's riding is the same. Still, even though these statements of non-difference are true, there is also the consideration of whether one directly perceives the absolute truth or one does not perceive the absolute truth. So even though you can say that actually it is Lord Vishnu who is present in Shiva and who is using Shiva for conducting destruction. Actually, it is Lord Vishnu who is present in Brahma, who is using Brahma to conduct the activities of passion. And is Lord Vishnu himself, without being present in anyone's body, who is conducting the mode of goodness. So why can't I just worship Lord Vishnu in Brahma? Why can't I worship Lord Vishnu in Shiva? No, but still there's a gradation there. Worship of Lord Vishnu is superior to worship of Lord Vishnu in Brahma, which is superior to worship of Lord Vishnu in Shiva. That cannot be avoided because that's a gradation, how much realization you get by worshipping the same Supreme Personality of Godhead in these three ways. So for that, this example is given. Then he points out that it is from Sattva Guna that one directly receives a realization of the Supreme Lord's transcendental nature. And in Vamana Purana, it is stated that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, these are actually forms of Lord Vishnu himself. We already saw this. This is actually a quotation from Madhvacharya's commentary. He has quoted from Vamana Purana. So the Lord is present in Brahma in a form known as Brahma. Vishnu himself is known as Brahma. The super soul of Brahma is Brahma. He is the original Brahma. Similarly, the super soul of Shiva is a Shiva, who is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And then Lord Vishnu, Janardhan, is separately situated. Similarly, in the 10th canto, there's a contrast between Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. And it is pointed out that Lord Shiva is always connected with the material energy. And therefore, he exhibits the three characteristics of goodness sometimes, passion sometimes, ignorance sometimes. And he is simply externally covered by the modes of material nature. Whereas Lord Hari is not even covered by the modes of material nature externally. He is directly the Supreme Person who is beyond Prakriti itself. He sees everything. He is the witness of all. And by worshipping him, the worshipper also becomes nirguna, beyond the modes of material nature. And that is stated in Brahma Samhita. The example of various lamps, candles for Lord Vishnu. The example of a gem which reflects the illumination of the sun for Lord Brahma. And the example of yogurt, which is a transformation of milk. And he points out that through the example of yogurt, one should not conclude that Lord Vishnu himself has degraded himself into a form of Shiva to deal with Tamoguna. That is because that has already been denied. The fact that the Supreme Lord is not transformed or degraded is already pointed out in Vedanta Sutra 2.1.27. So from these three examples, we understand the designation of Brahma has such a nature that Brahma has been compared to a Suryakanta gem, which reflects the rays of the sun. So one only experiences to a limited extent, to a small extent, the illumination of the sun. Whereas when you deal with the Upadhi or designation of Shambhu, Lord Shiva, then you see that Lord Shiva has been compared to yogurt. That amount of illumination of the nature of the original is not found in the Shambhu Upadhi. See, the Suryakanta gem, which reflects the sun, because it is reflecting the sun, a certain amount of the original prototype, which is the sun, that is found here. And has lots of illumination. This particular gem, which reflects the sun, it also gives some illumination. Something is there. On the other hand, between yogurt and milk, milk is the prototype, original. Yogurt is a transformation of it. You do not experience the nature of milk in yogurt. And when you look at the Vishnu part, then you see that Vishnu is Vishnu himself. He's simply one candle, another candle, another candle, another candle, another candle. Exactly identical with the prototype. So therefore, Vishnu alone is directly the Supreme Person. And that is confirmed in the second canto. Srijami tanniyuktoham haro harati tad vashaha. Lord Brahma, he admits that I am engaged by Lord Vishnu to create, and therefore I create. And Lord Hara, he destroys under the control of Lord Vishnu. That is also confirmed in the third canto. It is confirmed in the Shruti that Narayana is the one who desired to become many. He is the one from whom all the creatures, they came out. Mahanarayana Upanishad also says that in the beginning, there was only Narayana, there was no one else, and so on. Therefore, in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is the report of a test regarding amongst the three deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, who is actually meant to be worshipped, who is the actual object of worship. So that incident also makes it very clear. And when the incarnations of the Supreme Lord are enlisted, that time also, you find that Dattatreya is considered to be Vishnu's incarnation. Dattatreya is not considered to be an incarnation. You do not find Soma and Durvasa counted as Lord Vishnu's incarnations. Durvasa is Lord Shiva's incarnation. Soma was Lord Brahma's incarnation. Whereas Dattatreya is Lord Vishnu's incarnation. So it is only Dattatreya who is counted. So since Lord Vishnu is superior to everyone, when you find in other places of the scripture that the person who sees a difference or a distinction between Sri Vishnu and Shiva goes to hell, it should be understood that those statements pertain to impure Vaishnavas, not pure Vaishnavas, because those scriptures are meant for impure Vaishnavas. The reason for that is because in the Vaishnava Tantra, as well as in the Uttarakhanda of Padma Purana and so on, you hear the exact opposite. Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahmarudradi Daivataihi Samatvenaiva Viksheta Sapashandi Bhaved Dhruvam. That person who considers Lord Narayana to simply be equal to Brahma, Rudra, and other worshipable deities is nothing but a Pashandi, a person who has rejected Vedic authority. So therefore, we find at the end of Sri Vishnu Dharmottara Upapurana, the narration, the history of Nrsimha, who cracked out of a Shivalinga. There was a Vipra named Vishwaksena, and he was an exclusive devotee of Lord Vishnu. Once, when he was traveling on earth, somehow by providence, he met the son of a village chief. And then they had a conversation. So, in that conversation, that son of the village chief, he told this Brahmana, see, I'm not capable of engaging in the rituals pertaining to worship of the deities, my dear. So please worship Shankara. Go to his temple. He has been installed there. There is a spotless linga of the Lord of the Devas, Mahadeva. So at that time, this Brahmana replied, we are learned and we are exclusively devoted to Lord Vishnu. For us, only Lord Hari in 4 forms is meant to be worshipped. Or else, in his invisible forms, he can be worshipped. We will not worship anyone other than him. So please just go away from me. So then that son of the village chief, he then prepared to cut off the head of this Brahmana Vishwaksena. And Vishwaksena did not want to die by being killed by this village chief's son. So then he began to think, all right, let me go and let's see what need to be done. So then he went near that linga, and in that place he offered a Pushpanjali to that linga with the mantra Sri Nrsimhaya Namaha. So when he offered that, then again he raised his hand in order to cut the head of Vishwaksena, the Vipra. So at that time, Sri Nrsimha came out of that Shivalinga, and then he cut the heads of the son of this village chief as well as his supporting family members. This is a summary of the original incident found in Vishnu Dharmottara Upapurana. It is also mentioned in the Skanda Purana that from the scriptures glorifying Lord Shiva, one can accept the portions that are useful for one who is following the scriptures pertaining to Bhagavan. And there are similar statements confirming the supremacy of Lord Narayana in Moksha Dharma, a portion of Mahabharata. It is also mentioned in the Mahabharata that one who gives up worship of Lord Vishnu and out of delusion wishes to worship other worshipable deities, he has given up gold in order to accept dust. So therefore, you find in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that one who takes shelter of the demigods, having given up the shelter of Lord Vishnu, he is like the person who desires to cross over the ocean by holding on to the tail of a dog. Harivamsha also says very clearly that one should meditate on worship Lord Hari. Similarly, Nrsimha Tapani also talks about the supremacy of worshipping the mantra of Vishnu. Here is an interesting statement in Nrsimha Tapani Upanishad itself. Greater than 100 uninitiated persons is one who has been initiated. Initiated here refers to having received Upanayana initiation. Amongst 100 persons who have received Upanayana initiation, okay, 100 uninitiated persons is equal to one initiated person. I mean, 100 persons who have not received Vedic initiation equal one person who has received Vedic initiation. Of course, it's assumed that we are talking about persons who accept the restrictions of Vedic Dharma. Amongst 100 of those who have received Vedic initiation, they equal one Grihastha. 100 Grihasthas equal one Vanaprastha. 100 Vanaprasthas equal one Sannyasi. 100 Sannyasis equal a person who utters the Rudra mantra. 100 persons who utter the Rudra mantra equal one person who teaches the Atharva Shikha. That's one portion of the scriptures. 100 such persons equal the teacher of the Tapaniya Upanishad, this Nrsimha Tapani. 100 of such teachers equal one person who recites the Mantra Raja. Mantra Raja refers to, in this context, it refers to what is it? To Sri Nrsimha Mantra. Therefore, the Varaha Purana says, after thousands of lifetimes, when one worships Vrishadhvaja, Shiva, then the intelligent person, after his sinful reactions are destroyed, becomes a Vaishnava. Now, in Bhagavata itself, one comes across statements like this, that person who does not see a distinction between these three forms, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and who have a singular conception, and she is very dear to all the creatures, that person attains peace. That is just to point out that compared to Lord Vishnu, the others are dependent on him. 2nd canto verse again. Lord Brahma, he says, I have been employed by him, by Lord Vishnu. Thus I create. Hara, he destroys under the control of him. Whereas the Supreme Lord in the form of Purusha, he fully takes care of this universe because he holds all the three potencies. Sankarshana also says, 10th canto Lord Balaram himself, that Brahma, Shiva, myself, we are all simply portions of his portions. Lord Kapila says that Shiva became auspicious. Shiva in Sanskrit also means auspicious. Shiva became auspicious when on his head he put the water that comes from the pure water that comes from his lotus feet, from Lord Vishnu's lotus feet, Ganga. So therefore, in Padma Purana, while there is a discussion of Nama Paraj, we come across this statement, Shivasya Shri Vishnor Yaha Guna Namadi Sakalam Dhiya Bhinnam Pashit Sakhalu Hari Nama Hitakara. That person who considers that Shiva's quality, names, and so on are separated from Sri Vishnu's qualities, names, and so on. Even in his intelligence, if he sees like this, if he thinks like this, then he is an offender to Harinam. So here, it is not stated that one should see the qualities, names, and so on of Shiva and Sri Vishnu to be equal. Here it is simply stated that one should not see that there is any separation between the quality, names, and so on of Shiva and Sri Vishnu. This argument comes up later on in, this argument already came in Shat Sandarbha, I think in Bhakti Sandarbha only, where he gives evidence that the Shiva's qualities come from Lord Vishnu. Shiva's names come from Lord Vishnu. Shiva's form comes from Lord Vishnu. So you cannot separate them. Apart from that, the word Shri has been used only for Vishnu. It has not been used for Shiva. So from that we understand that it is Lord Vishnu who manifests all of his potencies. So one should not consider the qualities, names, and so on of Shiva to be separated, meaning to be independent of Sri Vishnu. Therefore, Lord Shiva speaks to Markandeya, 12th canto, that this person, Markandeya, he does not even slightly separate me from Lord Achyuta. So he tells Parvati, so let's go see him. Lord Shiva also tells elsewhere to the Prachetas, oh, all of you are Bhagavatas, you are Vaishnavas. You are as dear to me as Bhagavan Vishnu himself is. Nobody else is dear to me than the Bhagavatas. Similarly, in the 12th canto also, this Markandeya Rishi has been described by Lord Shiva to Parvati. He has no desire, hankerings. He's a Brahmarshi. He does not even hanker for liberation. All because he has attained bhakti to Bhagavan, that inexhaustible Purusha. He does not say he attained bhakti to me. He says he attained bhakti to Bhagavan. So the idea is that Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma themselves distinguish. So one cannot think that absolutely, in an absolute sense, in every possible manner, Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu are identical. So then Lord Shiva then enters into the samadhi of Markandeya Rishi. Then he gives evidence from Shruti that Vishnu is considered to be superior to the other worshipable deities. Yam kamaye tam ugram kranami tam brahmanam. There's something wrong with this. This is a statement by Lakshmi. I am the one who makes a person into Shiva. This Ugra is the name of Shiva. I am the one who makes a person into Brahma. So there is no defect if one worships Brahma and Rudra as Vaishnavas. Because we find statements such as the second canto statement about Lord Brahma being a devotee of the Lord. You'll find a 12th canto statement that says that Shambhu is the greatest Vaishnava and so on. That has been accepted. And we find Prahlad Maharaj, 7th canto, when he is summoned to Nrsimhadev. First of all, he offers his obeisances unto Lord Brahma. He bows down his head to him. And then he offers his respects to Lord Shiva, the Prajapatis, and the Devas, because they are all portions of Bhagavan. Similarly, Yudhishthir, when he performs the Rajasuya, so at that time, before that, he says, I will engage in this Rajasuya sacrifice, which is very purifying. He is actually telling Krishna, and I will worship your vibhutis, your slightly empowered expansions. So please arrange for this. If one engages in devotional service to these forms, considering them to be independent, if one thinks that Brahma, Shiva, and other demigods are independent of the Supreme Lord, then one cannot escape from Bhrigu's curse, which came in the 4th canto, that these people will fall down. They will become very low class pashandis, because they are now obstacles to the transcendental scriptural teachings. Because it is ultimately Lord Sri Janardana who is the source of the Veda itself. Okay, then this kind of independent worship of the Supreme Lord has been pointed out to not lead to the Supreme Lord himself. Bhagavad Gita itself. This is a Bhagavad Gita verse. Yepi anya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayan vitah tepi mameva konte yajanti avidhi purvakam. These people who are worshipping other deities with faith, O son of Kunti, they are actually worshipping me, but not following the proper method. I am the one who is actual enjoyer of all the sacrifices, and I am the master. They do not recognize me, and therefore they fall down. Those who worship the Devas, they attain the Devas. Those who worship the Pitris, forefathers, pious forefathers, they, when they are sworn to the vows pertaining to them, they attain them. Similarly, those who worship these ghosts and so on, they attain them. And one who worships me attains me. But one should not criticize, blaspheme the demigods and so on. Padma Purana. Hari is meant to be worshipped at all points in time because he is the Lord of the Lords of all the Devas. But the others, Brahma, Rudra, and the other worshipable deities, they should never ever be insulted. Similarly, Kurma Purana, statement of Sri Bhagavan himself. That person who daily worships me having taken shelter of me exclusively. But who criticizes Lord Ishana? Ishana is Shiva. He will certainly go to hell. Similarly, Gautami and Tantra. That person who worships Gopala and who criticizes other worshipable deities, what to speak of um, pious credits that would come up later on? All the pious credits that he had earned in the past will be destroyed for him. And therefore, you find the atonement for that stated in Narayana Kavacha prayer, 6th canto. May Lord Hayashirsha protect me from criticizing the Devas. Similarly, in the 4th canto, Nandishwara is criticized. The one who, that person who criticizes Lord Sharva, Sharva is Shiva, he will perpetually continue into material existence. If one has specific inquiries, then he should examine Sri Paramatma Sandarbha and Bhakti Sandarbha. Okay, wait. Let me see, what is this? What does impure Vaishnavas mean in context? One should not see any difference between Shiva and Vishnu. The impure Vaishnavas, they worship Shiva and Vishnu considering them to be equal. Not in all respects, but they give equal respect. They understand that Vishnu is supreme. They do not accept Shiva as supreme. But they give more importance to Lord Shiva than what is actually required. So these are impure Vaishnavas. It looks like these are persons who accept Shiva as their spiritual master because they require something from Lord Shiva. Because in the actual process of demigod worship, you have to worship a particular worshipable deity and you have to worship Lord Vishnu with a clear understanding that Lord Vishnu alone is supreme. So that is the distinction. Achyutanam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, you mentioned if one worships Lord Brahmaji or Shivji independent of Lord, they get curse of, I missed that, curse of whom? From Srimad Bhagavatam 4th canto you were saying.
Bhrigu.
Bhrigu Muni.
Bhrigu Muni. Bhrigu Muni.
And what was that curse, Prabhu?
We will see that. We are going to come to 4th canto.
Okay. And Prabhu, this...
If we all survive in Krishna consciousness and in our respective bodies, then we will.
And Prabhu, this commentary which you were reading lastly, this was Bhakti Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami only? Or some...
No. This is simply Jiva Goswami's Karma Sandarbha commentary on this verse, on text 24.
Okay.
Just 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay. Text 25. Bhejare Munayothagre Bhagavantamadhokshajam Sattvam Vishuddham Kshemaya Kalpante Yenu Taniha. Previously, all the great sages rendered service unto the personality of Godhead due to his existence above the 3 modes of material nature. They worshipped him to become free from material conditions and thus derive the ultimate benefit. Whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from the material world. So Sridhar Swami notes that here is evidence that in the past also, there were persons who had engaged in Vishnu Bhakti. This consideration is always there in Vedic civilization. Not only we see what is taught in Shruti We also see what is taught in the Smriti that clarifies the Shruti. And we see whether those teachings have been implemented in the past. And we see whether by such implementation, the benefit of having implemented it as promised in the scriptures is manifest or not. So that is on that basis only we come to conclusions. So those who understood that Lord Vishnu alone is beyond the three modes of material nature, they have engaged in devotional service unto him with that particular conception. And they have also become transcendental to the modes of material nature. So that evidence is there from the past. So here, the Supreme Lord is described as Adhokshaja. Bhagavantam Adhokshajam. So he is beyond the range of the senses. He is Vishuddha Sattva. Because of that, those who worship him, those who follow him, they also become qualified to do the greatest benefit for themselves, even though they are in material existence. The purpose of performing religion is neither to profit by material gain, nor to get the simple knowledge of discerning matter from spirit. The ultimate aim of religious performances is to release oneself from material bondage and regain the life of freedom in the transcendental world where the personality of Godhead is the supreme person. Laws of religion, therefore, are directly enacted by the personality of Godhead, and except for the Mahajanas or the authorized agents of the Lord, no one knows the purpose of religion. There are 12 particular agents of the Lord who know the purpose of religion, and all of them render transcendental service unto him. Persons who desire their own good may follow these Mahajanas and thus attain the supreme benefit. 26. Mumukshavo ghora rupan hitva bhutapathin atha Narayana kala shanta bhajanti hyanasu yavaha. Those who are serious about liberation are certainly non-envious, and they respect all, yet they reject the horrible and ghastly forms of the demigods and worship only the all-blissful forms of Lord Vishnu and his plenary portions. So there is a direct relationship between being serious about liberation and avoiding demigod worship. Demigod worship is meant to be avoided for persons who are serious about liberation from material existence. That means they want to attain liberation from material existence in that very lifetime. So these persons are told, you don't worship the demigods. So that explains why in the Ramanuja line, which is focused on attaining Vaikuntha in one life itself, they have this policy. No, we will never worship the demigods. There are actually I have myself seen statements in the scriptures which say that one should not worship other demigods. One should not worship other demigods. One should not worship the other deities. Either Swami. Question. But we see that there are some who worship other deities. Answer. That's true. However, those who are seeking liberation, they do not worship the other deities. They don't serve the other deities. Only those who are sakamas, those who have materialistic desires, they are the ones who worship them. This is noted in two verses, text 26 and text 27. Here, the word Bhutapatin, demigods, is simply indicative. It is just illustrative. It is not exhaustive, which means it refers to those who worship demigods and other celestial beings, such as forefathers, such as those who are Prajapatis and so on. Non-envious indicates that it means that these are persons who do not criticize other deities. Mohan Radhapati Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
So we see in Nectar of Devotion that there said one should begin the worship of Ganapati So in the 64 items, it's given. So how we understand that?
If you take that statement, so let me open that. One should begin the worship of the demigod Ganapati, who drives away all impediments in the execution of devotional service. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that Ganapati worships the lotus feet of Lord Nrsimhadev, and in that way has become auspicious for the devotees in clearing out all impediments. Therefore, all devotees should worship Ganapati. For what purpose? To remove all impediments in the execution of devotional service. This kind of worship of Ganapati is very useful. Very useful. We find in Krishna book also, Prabhupada talks about the worship of demigods, demigoddesses by the gopis, by Rukmini herself. And Prabhupada explains that for the service of the Supreme Lord, one can engage in worship of these demigods, demigoddesses, and so on. For any other purpose, you cannot worship. So generally, when we talk about demigod worship, we are talking about worship of specific deities who are famous in Vedic culture for having the capacity to provide certain things and who have indeed successfully presented these things to their worshippers in the past. Second canto, it says, if you want this, you worship him. If you want this, you worship her, and so on. That is simply a summary of what you find in the Vedic scriptures. That kind of demigod worship is forbidden for those who seek liberation. Okay. Okay.
Prabhu, then why can't we have a demigods in the place of Nrsimhadev, so that many people will come, because we can show them that
many people
we
will
remove the
come.
obstacles.
However, yeah, many people will come, and then people will think that for certain purposes you should worship Ganapati. You should not worship Nrsimhadev. That will be the problem. That is why Prabhupada did not want any demigod temples. Did not want this at all. They will think that Krishna is for spiritual life. What did I think of others? Our own devotees. I have myself heard from initiated devotees. Krishna is for spiritual life. But if you want material things, then you have to do this Shani puja. You have to worship Shiva. You have to do this because the astrologer has said that. You'll do. Therefore, Prabhupada was insistent that no, we do not worship demigods. In his final days, he said that I have not criticized the demigods, but I have criticized worship of the demigods. And he said, I have even criticized worship of Lord Shiva, what to speak of worship of other deities. Lord Shiva is the greatest amongst the demigods. He's the greatest Vaishnava also. But I've criticized worship because that is the only way. Otherwise, they will think that for certain purposes, I should take shelter of them. So we honor the demigods, but we don't worship them. The Sri Vaishnavas, they are extremely fanatical about this. But they don't consider themselves to be fanatical. They consider themselves to be staunch, pure devotees of Lord Narayan. This is how they describe themselves. We are staunch devotees of Lord Narayan. We are not impure devotees of Narayan. We don't want to extract something from Narayan. So we don't worship all these other deities. And they say that there was a time in Srirangam when they would take their deities, small deities, Utsava deities in procession. Even now it happens. About 250 days in a year, The small deities are taken out, very beautiful deities. They're taken out in a procession so that the people who don't come inside the temples, they're allowed to serve them. They can offer fruits and different things. So once when they were being taken out, and Sri Ramanuja himself was there in the crowd directing everything, it started to rain. And as far as I know, this was in Sri Rama. It might have happened elsewhere. I don't know. But the deities, Lord Vishnu, Lakshmi, Narayan, they were being taken up. And when it was raining, then the deities needed to be protected. So then there was a Shiva temple or some demigod temple. As far as I remember, it was a Shiva temple. That's what I have been told nearby. So then they asked, the deity needs to be protected. So then Ramanujacharya said, yes, the Lord can be taken to inside that temple Gopuram, and all of us will stand in the rain. And then he said, the husband can marry any woman, but the wife is only married to her husband. So the Lord can go to anyone. We will never go to anyone. We will go to the Lord only. That is called Ekanti Vaishnava. So that conception is there. You're muted.
Yes, bro.
Yeah, you were saying something.
Sorry, bro. No.
All right. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who is the original person of the Vishnu categories, expands himself in two different categories, namely integrated plenary portions and separated parts and parcels. The separated parts and parcels are the servitors, and the integrated plenary portions of Vishnu Tattvas are the worshipable objects of service. All demigods who are empowered by the Supreme Lord are also separated parts and parcels. They do not belong to the category of Vishnu Tattva. The Vishnu Tattvas are living beings equally as powerful as the original form of the personality of Godhead, and they display different categories of power in consideration of different times and circumstances. The separated parts and parcels are powerful by limitation. They do not have unlimited power like the Vishnu Tattvas. Therefore, one should never classify the Vishnu Tattvas or the plenary portions of Narayan, the personality of Godhead, in the same category with the parts and parcels. If anyone does so, he becomes at once an offender by the name Pashandi. In the age of Kali, many foolish persons commit such unlawful offenses and equate the two categories. The separated parts and parcels have different positions in the estimation of material powers, and some of them are like Kala Bhairava, Shmashana Bhairava, Shani, Mahakali, and Chandika. These demigods are worshipped mostly by those who are in the lowest categories of the mode of darkness or ignorance. Other demigods like Brahma, Shiva, Surya, Ganesha, and many similar deities are worshipped by men in the mode of passion, urged on by the desire for material enjoyment. In the mode of passion, you accept the restrictions of Vedic Dharma. But those who are actually situated in the mode of goodness, Sattva-guna of material nature, worship only Vishnu Tattvas. Vishnu Tattvas are represented by various names and forms such as Narayana, Damodara, Vamana, Govinda, and Adhokshaja. The qualified Brahmanas worship the Vishnu Tattvas represented by the Shalagrama Shila, and some of the higher castes like the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas also generally worship the Vishnu Tattvas. Highly qualified Brahmanas situated in the mode of goodness have no grudges against the mode of worship of others. They have all respect for other demigods, even though they may look ghastly, like Kala Bhairava or Mahakali. They know very well that those horrible features of the Supreme Lord are all different servitors of the Lord under different conditions, yet they reject the worship of both horrible and attractive features of the demigods. So the horrible worshipable deities are the ones who are worshipped by those in Tamoguna, and the attractive worshipable deities are the ones who are worshipped by those in Rajoguna. And they concentrate only on the forms of Vishnu because they're serious about liberation from the material conditions. The demigods, even up to the stage of Brahma, the supreme of all the demigods, cannot offer liberation to anyone. Hiranyakashipu underwent a severe type of penance to become eternal in life, but his worshipful deity Brahma could not satisfy him with such blessings. Therefore, Vishnu and none else is called Muktipada, or the personality of Godhead who can bestow upon us Mukti, liberation. The demigods, being like other living entities in the material world, are all liquidated at the time of the annihilation of the material structure. They are themselves unable to get liberation. And what to speak of giving liberation to their devotees? The demigods can award the worshipper some temporary benefit only, not the ultimate one. It is for this reason only that candidates for liberation deliberately reject the worship of the demigods, although they have no disrespect for any one of them. Okay.
So in the purport it is written, Lord Shiva is also for mode of passion. Lord Shiva.
Yeah, there are different forms of Lord Shiva.
Like
Kali is worshipped in Tamoguna, Mahakali, but Parvati is worshipped in Rajoguna. So like that.
but Shiva and Kali is the same.
Kali is a tamasic expansion of Parvati. Similarly, there are so many tamasic expansions of Lord Shiva, Veerabhadra, so many.
About this Shiva, understanding is very, very difficult sometimes, like in Gita it is explained that 11 types of Rudras are there.
So not 11 types of Rudra, there are 11 Rudras.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can you clarify about the Shiva?
Vishnu controls material nature but does not touch material nature. In order to touch and control material nature, he expands as Lord Shiva. As a pastime, he accepts the touch of material nature. Leelaya svikrita maya sparsha. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation in Madhurya Kadambini. As a pastime, Lord Shiva has accepted the touch of Maya. As a pastime indicates that he is not under the control of Maya. But Lord Vishnu, even as a pastime, does not accept the touch of Maya. There are living entities who are empowered by Lord Shiva, specific living entities, and they occupy the material post of Shiva. There's a material post of Shiva. Just as there is the post of Indra, there's a post of, you can say, a material Shiva. Then there is the original Shiva, Adi Shiva, who is on the other side of Brahma Jyoti. Generally, we refer to him as Sada Shiva. So there is the original Shiva, and then there are those who are actually empowered expansions of Shiva. Shiva Shakti Avish. So these Rudras in this world, they are generally Shiva Shakti Avesha. But there is the original Lord Shiva, who is a direct expansion of Lord Vishnu, and who accepts the touch of Maya in order to control Maya. We have to study Brahma Samhita, and gradually, when we study Bhagavatam itself, it will become clear. That's all. Not a very complicated topic. Okay, we'll move on. 27. Rajastamah prakritayah samashila bhajanti vai pitribhuta prajeshadin shriyaishwarya prajepsavaha. Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance worship those in the same category, such as the forefathers, other living beings, and the demigods in charge of cosmic activities. For such worshippers are urged by a desire to be materially benefited with woman, wealth, power, and progeny. See, there's an interesting observation from Srila Sridhar Swami. the worshippers and the worshipped are both having similar nature. So I'm in Rajoguna, I worship deities in Rajoguna. I'm in Tamoguna, I worship deities in Tamoguna. There's no need to worship demigods of whatsoever category if one is serious about going back to God. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's clearly said that those who are mad after material enjoyment approach the different demigods for temporary benefits, which are meant for men with a poor fund of knowledge. Alpamedha saha. We should never desire to increase the depth of material enjoyment. Material enjoyment should be accepted only up to the point of the bare necessities of life and not more or less than that. To accept more material enjoyment means to bind oneself more and more to the miseries of material existence. Because the miseries of material existence, we are repeatedly told by spiritual authorities who are situated in the mode of goodness or beyond, that material miseries will inevitably follow material happiness. Material unhappiness will inevitably follow material happiness. Unhappiness will follow happiness, which cannot be avoided. Which cannot be avoided. So they say that this is simply some type of addiction. It is pious addiction. Because when you are pious, then you recognize that there are higher beings who can provide different results. And they have extraordinary powers to provide it for us. No human being can provide it. So instead of taking shelter of some other human being, one thinks that it is far better to surrender to these higher beings. So one engages in Tushti Sadhana and Vara Prarthana. One takes up the pursuit of satisfying these deities and one prays to them for benedictions. The entire Vedic culture is just these two. Tushti Sadhana, Vara Prarthana. Ultimately, Vedic culture makes all of us into beggars. You do that which is satisfactory to competent higher authorities and you beg for benedictions and they give the benedictions. But they give that which you cannot achieve through any other method. As an ordinary human being, you cannot attain what these powerful demigods, demigoddesses do. But when one is in the mode of goodness, one realizes that even the extraordinary benefits given by these demigods and demigoddesses, they are still material. But I am intrinsically a spiritual being. I need to be liberated from the clutches of material nature itself. So this is simply deluxe binding. I do not want ordinary binding. I do not want extraordinary binding. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the living entity who is engaged in, who is arrested in Tamoguna, it's like a person who has, when they arrest you, they put shackles on you. They put they tie your hands, sometimes your feet off. So these shackles, what difference does it make? Whether it is made out of iron or silver or pure gold. So let's say I am shackled with pure gold shackles. Pure gold, it looks so beautiful. It's worth a lot. It may be studded with diamonds also. But nevertheless, I am bound. What difference does it make? I'm still bound. But for those who don't have intelligence, when we are not in Sattva Guna, we are impulsive, at least to some extent. Our brain doesn't work, at least to some extent. So we don't think all these things. So therefore, these people are considered to be unintelligent. Tamas they say Hrutagyana, their intelligence is lost, their knowledge is lost. Or Alpameta Saha, they are less intelligent. They have some intelligence because at least they are surrendering to a proper authority. But still, they are not considered to be sufficiently intelligent because they do not understand that I need to aim for liberation. More wealth, more women, and false aristocracy are some of the demands of the materially disposed man because he has no information of the benefit derived from Vishnu worship. By Vishnu worship, one can derive benefit in this life as well as in life after death. Forgetting these principles, foolish people who are after more wealth, more wives, and more children worship various demigods. The aim of life is to end the miseries of life, not to increase them. For material enjoyment, there is no need to approach the demigods. The demigods are but servants of the Lord. As such, they are duty bound to supply necessities of life in the form of water, light, air, etc. Emphasis: one should work hard and worship the Supreme Lord by the fruits of one's hard labor for existence. And that should be the motto of life. End of emphasis. By the fruits of one's hard labor for existence means from the money that he earns, he should worship the Supreme Lord. He should give in charity to those who worship the Supreme Lord, and so on. One should be careful to execute occupational service with faith in God in the proper way, and that will lead one gradually on the progressive march to Godhead. Lord Shri Krishna, when he was personally present at Vrajadham, stopped the worship of the demigod Indra and advised the residents of Vraja to worship their business, to have faith in God. Worshipping the multi-demigods for material gain is practically a perversity of religion. This sort of religious activity has been condemned in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam as Kaitava Dharma. Demigod worship, Prabhupada also mentions, is condemned in Bhagavad Gita. But in Krishna book, Prabhupada points out that even though it is condemned in Bhagavad Gita, it is not forbidden. It is condemned, but not forbidden. It's like in various countries, you have certain activities which are considered crimes. If you attempt to murder someone, you rape a woman, and so on. If you steal money or someone else's property, these are all crimes. You're punished for that. These are forbidden activities. But then there are certain other activities which are not crimes and which are repeatedly condemned. Statutory warnings are repeatedly given for smoking, drinking, and so on. So, worship of demigods, they are condemned repeatedly. Therefore, throughout Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, you will find statutory warnings. Don't engage in demigod worship. Don't engage in even activities of Vedic Dharma, which can grant you extraordinary material happiness. Don't engage in these activities. These are only statutory warnings. These are not crimes. So, in the name of avoiding these activities, we should not engage in sinful activities. That is foolishness. It is far better to worship the demigods than to engage in sinful activities. But better than that is to worship Lord Vishnu alone, Lord Krishna alone for material desires. Better than that is to pray to Lord Krishna for liberation from this entire mess of material existence. And better than that is to pray to Lord Krishna simply to serve him with no motivation, with no interruption. There are grades there. There's only one religion in the world to be followed by one and all, and that is the Bhagavata Dharma, or the religion which teaches one to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead and no one else. And that is the very message of the Srimad Bhagavatam. 28 and 29. Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Makha, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Kriya, Vasudeva param Jnanam, Vasudeva param Tapam, Vasudeva paro Dharmo, Vasudeva para Gatihi. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please him. Yoga is for realizing him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know him. Religion, dharma, is rendering loving service unto him. He is the supreme goal of life. Srila Swami notes that because Lord Vasudeva is the one who bestows liberation, he is fit to be the object of service. This has been already stated But now in 2 verses, text 28 and 29, it is pointed out that this is the purport of all the scriptures. There are scriptures of different types. But in all those scriptures, there are different Vedic scriptures of different types. But in all those Vedic scriptures, it is pointed out that Lord Vasudeva is the worship of Lord Vasudeva is the ultimate intention in each of these. What about the Vedas, 4 Vedas, which seem to be speaking about fire sacrifices? To that question, he gives the answer. No, they are also focused on Lord Narayana, or rather, Lord Vasudeva, Lord Krishna himself. Because these fire sacrifices are meant for worshipping him. Similarly, the Yoga Shastras, they present information about asana, pranayama, and so on. One might wonder what this has to do with the worship of Lord Vasudeva. But then he points out that Srimad Bhagavatam here points out that all of these are simply ways to attain Lord Vasudeva. Question: what about the Jnana Shastras? Don't they simply say that the goal is to come to the status of knowledge itself? Bhagavatam says, no, that knowledge is knowledge of Lord Vasudeva. Then the practice of knowledge, the practice of dharma through charity, vows, and so on. Don't they lead one to Swarga? But the result of attaining Swarga and so on are simply containing portions of bliss that comes about by his grace. So therefore, they are also focused on Lord Vasudeva. All the Vedas are actually focused on Lord Vasudeva. One should not think that the Vedas are teaching about fire sacrifices, yoga, rituals, and so on. All of these aspects are actually meant to come to the point of realizing Lord Vasudeva. That Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is the only object of worship is confirmed in these 2 shlokas. In the Vedic literature, there is the same objective: establishing our relationship with Vasudeva, acting according to that relationship, and ultimately reviving our lost loving service unto him. That is the sum and substance of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita, the same theory is confirmed by the Lord in his own words. The ultimate purpose of the Vedas is to know him only. All the revealed scriptures are prepared by the Lord through his incarnation in the body of Srila Vyasadeva, just to remind the fallen souls conditioned by material nature of Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. No demigod can award freedom from material bondage. That is the verdict of all the Vedic literatures. Impersonalists who have no information of the personality of Godhead minimize the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord and put him on equal footing with all other living beings. And for this act, such impersonalists get freedom from material bondage only with great difficulty. They can surrender unto him only after many, many births in the culture of transcendental knowledge. This is straight from Bhagavad Gita. One may argue that the Vedic activities are based on sacrificial ceremonies. It's true. But all such sacrifices are also meant for realizing the truth about Vasudeva. Another name of Vasudeva is Yajna, sacrifice. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it's clearly stated that all sacrifices and all activities are to be conducted for the satisfaction of Yajna or Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. This is the case also with the yoga systems. Yoga means to get into touch with the Supreme Lord. Yoga literally means contact, touch. The process, however, includes several bodily features such as asana, dhyana, pranayama, and meditation. And all of them are meant for concentrating upon the localized aspect of Vasudeva, represented as Paramatma. Paramatma realization is but partial realization of Vasudeva. And if one is unsuccessful in that attempt, one realizes Vasudeva. And if one is successful in that attempt, one realizes Vasudeva in full. But by ill luck, most yogis are stranded by the powers of mysticism. They are deviated by the powers of mysticism achieved through the bodily process. Ill-fated yogis are given a chance in the next birth by being placed in the families of good learned brahmanas or in the families of rich merchants in order to execute the unfinished task of Vasudeva realization. If such fortunate brahmanas and sons of rich men properly utilize the chance, they can easily realize Vasudeva by good association with saintly persons. Unfortunately, such preferred persons are captivated again by material wealth and honor, and thus they practically forget the aim of life. This is also so for the culture of knowledge. According to the Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 items in culturing knowledge. This is 13.8, 9, 10, 11, 12, Bhagavad Gita. By such culture of knowledge, one becomes gradually prideless, devoid of vanity, non-violent, forbearing, simple, devoted to the great spiritual master, and self-control. By culture of knowledge, one becomes unattached to earth and home and becomes conscious of the miseries due to death, birth, old age, and disease. And all culture of knowledge culminates in devotional service to the personality of God and Vasudeva. Therefore, Vasudeva is the ultimate aim in culturing all different branches of knowledge. Culture of knowledge leading one to the transcendental plane of meeting Vasudeva is real knowledge. Physical knowledge in various branches is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita as ajnana, or the opposite of real knowledge, meaning that it is not relevant knowledge at all. The ultimate aim of physical knowledge is to satisfy the senses, which means prolongation of the term of material existence and thereby continuance of the threefold miseries. So prolonging the miserable life of material existence is nescience. Nescience means ignorance. But the same physical knowledge leading to the way of spiritual understanding helps one to end the miserable life of physical existence and to begin the life of spiritual existence on the plane of Vasudeva. Yes.
Prabhuji, how to culture knowledge?
Yeah, one has to do all of these things. We have to accept training. That's all.
Like it is written prideless. So how I will be trained for giving
Yeah, we
the
are
prideless?
given various humble activities, services, dealings. We are trained. We're trained. Just shut up. Do what you're told. Gradually we get it. So like that. It is that arrangement. It is that arrangement that matters. The same applies to all kinds of austerities. Tapasya means voluntary acceptance of bodily pains to achieve some higher end of life. Ravana and Hiranyakashipu underwent a severe type of bodily torture to achieve the end of sense gratification, the goal of sense gratification. Sometimes modern politicians also undergo severe types of austerities to achieve some political end. This is not actually tapasya. One should accept voluntary bodily inconvenience for the sake of knowing Vasudeva, because that is the way of real austerities. Otherwise, all forms of austerities are classified as being in the modes of passion and ignorance. Passion and ignorance cannot end the miseries of life. Only the mode of goodness can mitigate the threefold miseries of life. Vasudeva and Devaki, the so-called father and mother of Lord Krishna, underwent penances to get Vasudeva as their son. Lord Sri Krishna is the father of all living beings, Bhagavad Gita 14.4. Therefore, he is the original living being of all other living beings. He is the original eternal enjoyer amongst all other enjoyers. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. Therefore, no one can be his begetting father as the ignorant may think. Lord Sri Krishna agreed to become the son of Vasudeva and Devaki upon being pleased with their severe austerities. Therefore, if any austerities have to be done, they must be done to achieve the end of knowledge, Vasudeva. I'll stop with this. Oh, there are so many questions here. Okay, in the next session, I should first of all deal with this. I should not forget.